Hi, I'm Natasha Watley. I'm a senior at UCLA, and I play shortstop. I was a member of the 2002 Women's National Team. We won the World Championship, and I'm hoping to make a spot on the 2004 Olympic team. I'm the leadoff batter, and I enjoy it because I get to set the tone and get momentum on our side. Winning the national championship in my senior year would be incredible. It'd be awesome. It'd be great. Just to walk.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I'm Matt Lisle, and today is Tuesday, February 9th, and this is the Ask Coach Lisle show, where I try to help parents, coaches, and athletes around the world tackle the challenges of life and athletics. If you're just tuning in, let me know you're here, and let me know where you're tuning in from. One of my favorite parts about this show is seeing where everybody's tuning in from around the world. So hit the like button for me, hit the share button, and let me know where you're tuning in from. Last week, we had people from Australia, New Zealand, all over the world, and that was one of my favorite things, is just getting to see where everybody is tuning in from. So please, let me know where you're tuning in from, and hit that like button, hit that share button. You may have guessed from my intro video who my special guest is today. It's none other than Olympian, All-American, national champion, and one of the greatest of all time, Natasha Watley. Natasha, thanks for joining.
Thank you for having me. This is awesome. Thank you.
I'm excited to have you. And Natasha and I will be answering all of your questions for about 30 minutes today in regards to just about anything. So make sure you get your questions in the comment section, and we'll try to get to as many as we can today. So it's awesome to see everybody tuning in today. Matt's in Northern Arizona. We've got someone in Madison, Wisconsin. Kevin's in Las Vegas. Angela's in Central Mass. Nathan's in Central New Jersey. Neil in Mammoth Lakes, California. Alex in Virginia. So we got people all over the country tuning in. And all over the world. So thank you again, everybody, for tuning in. Hit that like button, hit that share button. Let us know you're here. And also, if somehow you've lived under a rock your whole life, or you don't follow softball, and you don't know who Natasha is, I just want to fire off a couple of fun facts. So first of all, Natasha is the first African-American female to play in the U.S. Softball team in the Olympics. She helped lead the U.S. team to the gold medal at the 2004 Athens game. And just like live TV, of course, my 3-year-old wants to jump in on the screen too. So also about Natasha, she set the Olympic record for stolen bases. And she graduated from UCLA with a degree in sociology and a minor in African-American studies. While she was there, she also earned All-American accolades, not once, not twice, not even 3 times, but 4 times. And that is incredible. So that's awesome. And thanks again for being on. As the questions are start pouring in, I'm seeing a lot of good questions. People are tuning in. Melbourne, Australia. That's awesome. Good to see you guys. I have a couple questions lining up for Natasha. The first one actually is, and I'm a huge coffee person. My first question to you is, what is your relationship with coffee? I just define it for us. What's coffee like for you?
It's a must-have. It's a non-negotiable. If I don't have coffee, you probably don't want to be around me, or you don't want to be my friend. But it's actually interesting because I'm not even sure if it's doing anything anymore because I drink so much of it. So I don't even know, if it's even making a difference. But I definitely am a coffee drinker, and I can probably drink it in the afternoon and still be fine, and go to sleep at night. I know it's a problem.
I was giving my follow-up question. How much coffee do you think, ounces do you drink a day, do you think, on average?
Oh, gosh. I don't know. I would say at least 2 to 3.
Okay.
I mean, that's minimum. It's probably 2. Yeah.
Now, when you're in Japan and you're looking for coffee, where do you go? Is it a local spot, a chain? What do you try to find?
The great part, there are so many coffee shops, and actually in our little neighborhood, I'm actually in Japan right now. So there's a little coffee shop. It's super cute, and it's called Coffee Likes. That's the name of the coffee shop. It's super cute, quaint. There's a ton of little coffee shops all over the place. So it's easy to find.
That's awesome. And then I read somewhere that you are all about purses. Is this true?
Facts. These are vintage facts.
Vintage facts. So are you still about purses? Is this an old fact, or is this still something you're all about?
Gosh, not as much as I used to be. Like literally in my early 20s, I probably got a new purse every month. And like every paycheck or any little money that I got like a new purse. I was all about your Louis Vuittons and your Fendis, and I don't know. I had like expensive taste at an early age, but I think as maturity has hit. I'm spending money on I guess, better quality things. I don't know.
That's great.
Experiences. I don't know
great.
what that is.
That's cool. All right, so I have to give a special shout out today. Today's episode is brought to you by Travis Matthew, apparel for work and play. You can check out Travis Matthew at travismatthew.com. If you're checking in for today's episode, this is the Ask Coach Lisle show with my special guest, Natasha Watley, answering your questions. And we've already got a bunch rolling in, so get your questions in and let us know again where you're tuning in from. Martin's tuning in from Prague, Czech Republic. We've got someone from New York. So we got people all over the world. Jose's in Costa Rica. Shane's in Melbourne, Australia. And the first question of the day, which I think is a good one, is for Natasha. And the question is from Todd: who is a better basketball player, you or your dad?
Oh, he's going to crack up. I'm going to for sure say me. My dad is the biggest basketball fan. He was dying for me to play basketball. And I think that's why I gravitated towards softball, just resisting anything that he wanted me to do. And so that's probably, he saw how good I was, and that's probably why he wanted me to continue to play. So I'm going to go with me. That's a great question.
That's funny. That's really funny. All right. Our next question comes about slapping. It's from Ryan. He says, Ryan says, my daughter is just now switching from the right side to left side of slapper. What recommendations do you have on where to start? We just started watching your 3-step videos yesterday. Thanks. This is a pretty common thing, people kind of going from the right to the left. What advice do you have for people to start in that process?
Gosh, I have so much advice. But the biggest, I guess my favorite story that I always share is whenever you're going from the right to the left side, start and finish your at-bats on the left side. So I always talk about my walk of shame story. So the very first couple of times that I started to slap, I would start my at-bat on the left side. I'd get 2 strikes and then literally have a walk of shame to the right-handed batter's box. So if you can imagine, I already had failed before I even got to the right-handed batter's box. So my best advice is, yes, it's going to be a little rocky in the beginning. Slap hitting is awkward. It's like a learned skill. You gotta learn it. You got to figure it out. But I think you got to give yourself a little bit of time, give yourself a little bit of grace, but start and finish your at-bat on the left side.
Oh, that's great. That's great advice. Our next question comes from Tony. He says, what are some of the tools you use to introduce and promote the game of softball in minority inner city communities? That's a great one. I'll tell you, in my experience, done a little bit of that with an organization that I used to work with called I Love Baseball out of Dominican Republic. And I'll tell you what, for me, I was able to gather some friends, and we did some free camps and kind of did some equipment drives and stuff like that. I mean, I'll tell you, and I know Natasha's this is important to you too. To me, baseball and softball in low-income communities right now are hurting, and it's getting worse and worse. And it's something I came from a family of 7 kids who my parents would have never been able to afford travel ball or any of that stuff growing up. And so it's for me, it's important. Natasha, what are some of the tools to promote the game of softball in minority inner city communities that you've seen have been successful?
Yeah, well, through my foundation, I have a nonprofit, Natasha Watley Foundation. We literally are bringing programs that are low barrier of entry to girls in inner cities. And that's super important to me. I don't want there to be a barrier of entry. I don't want there to be a high premium ticket price for them to just learn the game. This is a fun game, and it's for everybody, and everybody should have that equal opportunity to learn. And so it's free clinics. And if you can get a couple of coaches, if you can get your posse together, and if you have equipment, if you can find people to donate equipment, if you can, find people to sponsor a clinic or companies, they'll do that. But if you can bring this game to these young ladies, because what you're dealing with a community where parents may not see the importance of their kid playing a sport, especially for girls. And, maybe for young boys, it's like, maybe this is the ticket for us, but for girls, they may not see that, and they may not see the possibilities or the opportunities. So it's super important that you bring this to them, and partner with local communities. If you can partner with municipalities in inner cities, if you can partner with Boys and Girls Clubs, YMCAs, and they have the access to the kids. Bring clinics, bring the information, bring the resources to those communities, and I think that's the best way that you can make it a low barrier of entry for those communities.
That's great advice. If you're just tuning in, this is the Ask Coach Lisle show with my special guest, Natasha Watley. And again, one of my favorite things is finding out where you guys are tuning in from. So let us know where you're tuning in from around the country. You got Buster's in New Orleans, Louisiana, Caesar's in Arlington, Willie's in Laredo, Texas, and Natasha's in Japan, across the world. So all kinds of stuff. So our next question, Natasha, is from Justin. He says, how do you both feel about the balance between high school and travel ball for today's high school athletes? And I know, it's funny for me, coming from baseball to softball about 10 years ago, high school baseball was really competitive, and it was something that was kind of equal to the travel ball in a lot of ways. And I got over to softball, it was much different for me. There wasn't a lot of high school wasn't very strong in comparison to travel ball. So it's been an interesting, I know with COVID too. What are your thoughts on that balance? Again, I kind of frame it usually around the question of, I play for a high school team, the coach isn't great, or the team's not very good, should I play? I think there's a lot of advantages to still playing, but what do you think about the balance between those two things?
I think that you absolutely should play. And you're absolutely right. It's in our softball world, high school is almost considered, like recreational, and travel ball is where you're going to get recruited, and you're going to get exposure, and you're going to get seen, and you're going to get that development. But I think the true testament, especially if you're playing on a high school team that's not that great, like that's where the great athletes rise. It's like, can you survive in any situation? Like, can you get your team on your back? If they're not that great or whatnot. But I also think too, when you're playing with your high school, you're playing with your friends, your community, like your peers, people that you're going to school with. So like having that social interaction, especially in these times, like social interaction is like the most important thing. So if you can play on your high school team, like those are your people, like these are your people, like 10 years, your 20 years, your 20-year reunion, you go back to your high school reunion. These are the people that you're going to go back and see. So I think it's super important to create that balance and figure out how you can play on your high school team as well, get those extra reps as well, playing on your high school team, and also playing on your travel ball team as well.
Yeah. And to me, that one of the saddest parts about the shift in travel ball in the last 20 years is that, like, sports used to be very community based, and for Little League, and so you had communities rally together behind people. You knew the kids that went to school, and high school, obviously, it was a big community thing where all your friends came to your games, and that's really changed a lot. Now the people in the stands are parents or college coaches, and it used to be, your friends were in the stands and cheering you on the weekends for games and stuff like that. So I definitely wish that a lot of kids could experience that a little bit more than they are now. So the next question comes from Chopper's Baseball. It says, do you ever struggle with anxiety during high leverage moments? If so, do you have any advice for young ladies on slowing the game down? Is there anything that can be done days prior to a game? That's a great question.
That is a really great question. And honestly, growing up, I would get nervous before games. And so I never had the verbiage that it was anxiety. So I think that's also something to point out too. It's like, if you, the way that we're phrasing these things for our athletes as well. I mean, yes, it is anxiety. But when I got nervous, I was able to kind of, it let me know that I was ready for a game. Like the times that I wasn't nervous for a game, like those were the times that I had like the crappiest games, excuse my language, but, making sure that you kind of anticipate. And once you start to feel nervous, if you can start to visualize, I think a day or two ahead of time, and start to play the game before it even happens, once you step into the moment, it kind of eases and slows the game down, because you're like, I've already been here before. So trying to just kind of forecast what you want to accomplish in that game, because I think where some anxiety comes from is trying to perform and to kind of reach a certain level, and thinking that you have to reach these levels, and kind of having that fear of failure. So I think if you can forecast positivity, visualize yourself doing well, once you get into the game, it can kind of slow things down. I was like, okay, I've already had this at bat before. And so I think just visualizing, I think, is a big, huge tool that can help with anxiety. But anxiety, I guess, is, the fear of the future. And so it definitely is anxiety. It's just, I never had that verbiage. And so I never thought my nervousness was something like that high level. When you hear anxiety, it's like, ooh, gosh, like, it seems like it's a huge, huge, big deal. But definitely, I mean, nervousness, same thing. I think that allowed me to think and know I was ready for the game.
I think that the medical term when we were growing up was just butterflies. I think that's what you
right.
used to say, butterflies. I got butterflies before the game. So, hey, Tito asked a good question here. He says, aside from analytics, what has changed the most in softball since your earlier playing days? What do you think the game? How much has the game changed?
Like everything. Analytics. Let's talk about the technology in like bats and technology to like just analyze, like be able to visually see myself in video. I mean, we didn't have that. We had to pop in the VHS tape, maybe, I think the coaching is definitely better. A lot of more athletes are sticking around and coaching. And so I just think the IQ of the athlete at a younger age is much higher. I think even from my perspective of being an African American, our game is becoming more diverse, and I love that. That makes me happy to see. There's a lot of different. The game is much, and the saying is, you want to leave the game better than you found it, and I definitely think that the game is much, much better than when I found it, for sure.
Yeah, I'll say, like, from my experience growing up in softball, I didn't really watch softball, didn't know about it. But when I did see box scores or I saw softball, I felt like it was like 19 inning games and it was a 1-0 ball game if I ever saw a score. So I always thought in the back of my mind, without even watching the sport, I was like, man, these games are like 15 to 20 innings and no one scores. And then when I've gotten to even just the last about 10 years I've been in softball now, the offense in the game has been incredible in the sense of the scores in the World Series. You have double-digit scores. I feel like you just didn't see a lot of that back in the day, I guess. So
Totally. Yeah. I agree.
Asked this question, and I'm going to kind of expand on Mike's question. Is there a hitter Natasha would not try to teach or convert to a slap hitter? Would she try to convert a hitter like Kelly Kreshman or Lauren Chamberlain to a possible slap hitter? And I would say, I would kind of expand on that. What do you think? Is there a hitter that, or a style of hitter, or someone that you would say, hey, this is not someone I wouldn't try to convert it? Because I come across a lot of parents that have right-handed hitters who maybe they've been struggling and they're like, oh, I have a little bit of speed, I'm going to switch them to the left side. Any thoughts on that whole process and how you would identify that?
Right. I mean, you gave me a great example. So for the record, Kelly Kreshman can slap, and she does slap. And I think that she leverages it in like the moments when she needs it the most, and when whether it's not necessarily if she's struggling, it's if it's pairing towards a pitcher. But to answer your question, there are athletes that I would not turn. I would not turn a Lauren Chamberlain. The girl is the leading home run hitter in NCAA history. So I would never turn her to the left side. That would not do her justice. I love Lauren Chamberlain, and she doesn't have speed. So speed is a big part of it. I think she'd be okay with me saying that. But that's a big part of being a slap hitter. If you're going to be able to put the ball in play, challenge a defense, create a little bit of pressure, that's the whole point. I do argue that sometimes you don't have to be the fastest if you at least are able to swing for some pop on the left side, mix up some things, and kind of just, if you run through the box and it makes a defense have to react because they know they've got to field this ball cleanly or whatnot. There are some people that I would not turn. So it's not all based on, every single athlete I see, I'm like, you should be a slap hitter. Definitely someone who's got some speed, who's athletic, who's agile, got good hand-eye coordination. Those would be great to turn to the left side.
That's awesome. All right, the next question, it's a slapping question that I'm going to steal this time. It says, in your opinion, is 100% slapper still marketable? Or do girls still need to also work hitting away to develop and work on power? So I'm going to steal a part of this question from you a little bit. From a college coach's perspective, here's what I'll tell you. If a slapper can get on base and cause havoc and steal bases, they are 100% still marketable and very recruitable. I would tell you that last year at Fresno State, we had a slapper who was the Mountain West Freshman of the Year, broke the stolen base record, but she didn't really swing away. And we worked a lot on that, and she hit some home runs last year. And so for me, when it comes to slappers, if they can also power slap or swing away, and they can look out of the defense and make decisions, or you're the defense and you don't know if this person's a slapping, they're going to swing. To me, as long as they're not one-dimensional and they're just like a soft slap and run type, I think now I think those types, again, at the end of the day, if you can get on base and cause havoc, I don't care how you can do it. But if you can add some things, a swinging away, a power slap, and the defense doesn't know what's coming, that to me is the most dangerous people out there. So what do you think? Are slappers still marketable in the game?
Yeah, I think you hit it all. You hit all the points. Definitely, like you shouldn't be one dimensional. Like, but here's the thing: like you don't necessarily have to stand in and hit away for power. So if you're a slap hitter and you have multiple slaps, like you said, you're not one dimensional. You have a soft slap, you can bounce the ball, and you can do a hard slap. You've got to make defenses respect you. You've got to have at least a little bit of power on a slap, and you've got to have something that you can just touch and go or put in play. And maybe be able to put down the bunt a couple times. So you can be a predominantly slapper, but you've got to have a couple dimensions. But obviously, you're going to elevate that athlete to that next level and make them more of a threat if they can actually stand in and hit away too. Because now you've got more options and more things to pair for different situations, different pitchers, different defenses, different surfaces. So I think you can have a slapper be predominantly just a slapper, but they've got to have a short game and a power game that they can do off of their slaps.
That makes sense. All right. If you're just tuning in, we've got a few minutes left. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Again, it's great to see. We got Joe in Long Island. We've got Josh in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Danielle's in Belton, Texas. People all over the world. Poconos in Pennsylvania. Joel's in Raleigh, North Carolina. So we're going to get a couple more questions here, Natasha. Again, if you're just tuning in, this is the Ask Coach Lisle show. So get your questions in for myself and my special guest, Natasha Watley. Natasha, the next question says, hey, Natasha, thanks for all the great and sometimes free triple threat content. Seems to me slapping at a young age is so much about confidence. Any advice for coaches and players who are making the difficult transition? So thinking about, I think it's kind of centered around confidence and slapping at a young age. Any advice for those parents or younger kidders or just starting out slapping?
Definitely. Slap hitting it's tough. I mean, it's an acquired skill. And if you just put it into context, like you're sprinting at a pitcher who's literally trying to throw as hard as she can. She's trying to move the ball and, hit different zones and hit different planes and have different spins. And you're trying to put this ball in play. And you're supposed to have touch and be able to have, some type of finesse. That does not come overnight. So you've got to give yourself grace and definitely confidence. And I think the one thing that an athlete can control is knowing what she should be doing. And also too, the execution may not be there, but as long as she understands what her footwork should be, what her hands should look like, if she's starting to really understand the mechanics, just like focus on that. And that's where you're going to build your confidence, just like really honing in like what you need to know. The execution will come. And that execution comes with experience, with continuing to do something over and over again. We all know that. So I think, yes, definitely confidence it's confidence with anything. And definitely I just give yourself some grace to work out through those kinks. And I think that also comes from the parents as well. As parents is like, oh, you're not doing it right. Like you're not getting it. You're not putting it in play. But like also as parents too, if you can give your athletes some grace too, it's like, it's okay. We're learning this thing. So, we're not going to learn this thing overnight. It may be a year, 2 years, 3 years. So give yourself some grace.
That's great. I want to give a special shout out to Tony. Tony says, your foundation is already my Amazon Smile charity. Thank you for the advice. That's awesome, Tony. Good job. Here's a good question. I should have thought of this one myself. Ryan says, since you are in Japan, my daughter is a big anime fan. Wants to know if you watch anime, and if so, what is your favorite? Did you ever get into it?
I don't watch anime at all, and I have a travel ball team, and the girls, every time I'm going to Japan, they're like, watch this, watch that. Do you watch this, Coach Josh? And I'm like, I'm striking out in that category. I know that.
I've had a couple friends share like some videos with me, and I watched them, and I'm like, it wasn't bad. It's just like, again, it's very your style, I guess. It's a very interesting style. So I don't know. We got a couple more. We're gonna get a couple more questions here before we let you go. Neil asks, how long have you been in Japan? And I know kind of you go back and forth. Your favorite thing you've done in Japan? Do you karaoke there? I know, because we know that's big there. If so, what is your favorite song to karaoke? So I know there's kind of 3 questions there, but give us a little Japan and karaoke for you.
Yeah, well, definitely. So this is my 13th season coming to Japan. So I know, it's crazy, right? I don't know. This place is amazing. It's a unique culture, unique place. I love it here. I love my team. But karaoke for sure. Like, that is like one of the first things when we first came, the team took us to dinner, and then we went to karaoke. So like, karaoke is very popular here. I love it. It's fun. And it's like actually kind of fun. Like, just like on an off day, Monica and Ab and I were teammates here. We would just go and go sing karaoke. And if anybody knows me, of course, I'm singing Beyonce. That is my go. Anything Beyonce, I am belting it to the best of my abilities. May not sound like her, but I do what I can.
That's awesome. While she's not here, let's talk about Monica for a second. What would you say Monica's go-to karaoke song when she opens the book, or she already knows ahead of time? Where does she go?
She doesn't have a go-to.
Really?
She's like, well, and that's what's actually really neat about Monica. Monica has like a wide range of music that she listens to. She listens to everything. So you can't put her in a box in the music category. Like, I'm very predictable. You already know what my go-to is. She doesn't really have a go-to.
That's funny. All right, we got two more here. It says, Kristen asks, tips for hitting the change up and staying in the box as a slapper. I'm going to tune into this one too.
Oh, yeah. Well, timing is everything. So especially the one thing too, if you know you're facing a pitcher who has multiple speeds and she's throwing a lot of off speed, you always want to time your slaps for the slowest pitch, because the go-to rule for slap hitting, late is on time. So if anybody's blowing smoke by me and I'm just fouling it off, like, I'm good, because we want to be late. Late's on time. So I always want to make sure I'm timing myself for that slowest pitch and anticipating that. So starting as late as possible is always going to help you. And so great drills are always just getting in that crossed over position and just being super comfortable and hitting in that position. So even, you're going to be crossed over and you're coming up on that back leg and making contact off of your only on one leg. If you can hang in that crossover. So every time I see off speed, I want to try to hang and try to think about going left side if I can, and just tap and go. So even if I see something slow, I want to kind of slow down my hands as well. Because as a slap hitter, we're just literally just trying to put the ball in play. We want to create some pressure on some defense and try to get some hang time, let the ball travel as much as we possibly can.
That's good. That's really good advice. All right, maybe one of the last ones here. Mike asks, what are your opinions on the new slapping rules regarding the footwork? Good, bad, or indifferent on these new rules?
Yeah, I think it's good. I'm all for it. I definitely think it challenges slappers to stay in the box, but I also think we've got to challenge the battery. I mean, now we're talking about strike zones. We've got to keep the strike zones honest, because if you're going to call it off the plate 10 feet, then I want to go and get it, So I think it's got to go both ways. So that's me, the slapper, talking. But I'm all for it. I'm all for the challenge. I definitely didn't have to go through or, abide by that rule. Those rules are as of recent. And so I definitely think it steps up the slapper's game in terms of her footwork, her steps, making sure that she's staying in the box. But I think on the flip side, let's keep those pitchers and catchers honest, and more so the umpire it's not necessarily pitchers and catchers. It's more so the umpire, keeping the umpire honest.
True. Very true. Okay, Natasha. So we touched on it for just a second. I know that you have the Natasha Watley Foundation, and it's about empowering young women and making healthy lifestyle choices and developing self-esteem and leadership. Before I let you go, tell us a little bit about if I want to follow you more or get to know you a little bit more, or I want to know more about the Natasha Watley Foundation. Tell us a little bit about where can we find it and how can we get involved.
Yes, well, there's a ton of ways. So even like one of your viewers is on Amazon. I forget the Amazon Prime. You can
Smile.
pick us as a Amazon Smile. I was like Amazon Prime. You can pick Natasha Watley Foundation as one of your charities. But yes, you can find us on Instagram. Like we an opportunity to play this game of softball. It's such a great game, and we don't want anybody to have any barrier of entry to learn, to have the opportunity to play. So NatashaWatleyFoundation.org, or on Instagram, we're at NW Foundation on Instagram and Twitter. And on Facebook, nice. We're Natasha Watley Foundation. So that's where you can find us.
All right, so everyone do me a favor today. Before you do anything else, go follow those on Twitter and Instagram. Check out the Natasha Watley Foundation, and if you're looking to get involved, I think it's a great foundation to get involved with. And before you leave, Natasha, everyone who's following, everyone who's been watching today, I know we've had over 5,000 people tuning in live today. Do me a favor, before you leave today, hit the like button, hit the share button, the retweet button, whatever you're watching this on. Share it out there, so when this is over, other people can go out and watch these great questions and answers that Natasha helped me answer today. So, Natasha, thank you again for spending the time with us and answering lots of questions. And I appreciate you taking a lot of the questions off me today. A lot of slapping questions, a lot of good questions.
Yeah.
Made my job easy today. So I just kind of had to smile and nod. So thanks again for being on and sharing.
Thank you so much for doing this. This is great. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, we'll have to have you on again. I appreciate you. And everybody have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you soon.
All right.
All right.